the DReps are actually guardians of the blockchain itself. So that was really interesting. We asked this question about why become a DRep, and I expected like lots of answers, like because we will have an influence on the governance, we'll make changes, all these things. But like the number one majority answer on both workshops so far is actually that they want to protect and guard the blockchain.
Now, during 2023, we had a few workshops going around the Cardano ecosystem around DReps, and this is something I haven't touched on much recently, and I would love to learn more. We have Daniel and Eystein joining me on this episode to talk through how these workshops were, what came out of it, and what we can expect in the future of governance for Cardano. So super interesting stuff here. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Peter.
Okay, so can we get a recap of what's been happening in the DRep space with these workshops?
Yeah, so DRep, or a delegated representative, it's part of this like governance system on Cardano. I'm sure many are aware, with both the SIP 1694, where basically the keys for governance is going from the three entities over to all of us. And one crucial part of that is the votes being made by these delegated representatives. So we had actually a catalyst proposal in Fund 10 that was about DRep recruitment, training, and ethical code for development for these DReps. And we have done some work on that in 2023 and also now in 2024. We just had a workshop in Oslo, January the 20th, and we also had a workshop in Accra in Ghana, the 27th January.
Wow.
The two next upcoming are in Bogota in Colombia. Let me just quickly check the date on that one. And then in Indianapolis, the 17th of February. So we try to cover all of the continents. We don't yet have Australia, but we hope to find someone there as well. The one in Bogota is February the 24th, sorry. So it's going to be fairly tight now in February for all of this. But you also asked like what we learn and what we're trying to accomplish by all of this. One of the things is really like to root this in the community, how we develop some form of code of conduct for these delegated representatives. We saw this with the workshop we did on the SIP. Like it was all across the world. I think it was several thousand people actually attended all these workshops. And we are targeting something the same now with the delegated representative. We have a code of conduct document where, like, I'm going to boil it down super simple, because it was, at one point, it was like a 35-page document, but it boils down to three essences. You need to have some form of competence for these DReps, because without it, you don't have effective governance. And you need to have some form of organizational disclosures. And finally, we call it fairness, but what we mean with that is, for example, like some evidence you're not doing arbitrary voting, and some evidence you're not voting in like self-economic interest without disclosing that you have those economic interests to yourself. So you can really boil it down to these three, but out of these three, there's so many complex issues. Let me take one that's really cool, and Daniel was one of the ones who suggested it in Norway, but we saw the same now in Ghana. It's basically like, how do we do the economy of governance? So you could either have like a black market for selling votes, or as they suggested in Accra, where actually people delegating to a DRep would get back the rewards from that DRep that they are earning on governance. So they will get like a kickback sort of. And I think this is bound to happen. Like, we really need to think carefully about this, and what's acceptable and what's not. And to do that, we also need to understand what's possible. And I think that's why it's very interesting. And Daniel suggested like a black market for DReps in the Norway workshop. So that was fun. Some of the other things, and just stop me if I'm talking, but I'm really passionate about this topic. But some of the other things we saw is like people are really passionate about delegate representatives, and you think governance is boring, but like everyone reported, like why does it matter? It's because it's going to actually help protect the blockchain itself. So there are going to likely be guardrails in the constitution. Like I said, there's like a complex governance process. DReps is one part of it, and then you have like this constitution committee, and then you also have sometimes the SPOs who vote, in particular when there's like a vote of no confidence on these constitution members. But the long story short is that the DReps are actually guardians of the blockchain itself. So that was really interesting. We asked this question about why become a DRep, and I expected like lots of answers, like because we will have an influence on the governance, we'll make changes, all these things. But like the number one majority answer on both workshops so far is actually that they want to protect and guard the blockchain as DReps. So that was a bit surprising for me actually to see.
One of the things I see as being a DRep is helping other people vote, because there's a lot voter participation in Catalyst is tiny. It's not a full representation of the entire Cardano ecosystem, and I know a lot of people have absolutely no idea what we're talking about. So
Yes.
that's probably the major thing I see as a DRep. So people can help other people vote. So it's delegating that vote to someone that knows what they're talking about and what they're doing to make the right decisions. So and hopefully we do see voter participation increase with DReps around. But also what I'm interested in is who or what type of person are you looking for as DReps?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and most of our debates on this have revolved around the fact that I don't think anyone can be an expert on every topic as a DRep. For example, when you're doing protocol parameter changes votes, you will need some form of technical expertise to understand what are you actually voting on. So we see it in most of the workshop as some natural evolution is that there are going to be organizational DReps. We are probably going to see, like, for example, Nordic Cardano community, we are going to look for DRep and having like an organization where we have advisors for topics. The other part of it is like how you actually do like a voter rationale. Like in the background technology of it, it's something called like a voting anchor where you can post a text file with what's your reason for voting, how you vote. I'm not sure everyone will read that, but like what I would like to see, and one of the things we saw in the workshop is like some form of like community review or flagging. So you could have this like back and forth where someone posted a rationale and then someone posted a note to that with some facts, for example, and then you have this really like enlightened discussion that's easy to follow for others. So I think the clue is going to be like these platforms, how we present this data. So that's why we have put a lot of energy. Every workshop we have one part that's about governance tooling. So we have like a pitch round where we group ourselves. So we had 3 groups in the Norwegian one. I think they also in Ghana had 3 groups as well, and where we like really brainstorm ideas for this tooling, and some cool ideas so far. The community note was one. Another one is like, how do you actually know who's a DRep? Like, so some form of like DRep mapping or ecosystem mapping, that's going to be really important. But yeah, it's a very good question. Like we see this in Catalyst. I call it like a voter fatigue. It's like too many things to you can't read all of the proposals. So you need someone who is filtering this and that you trust. And then you can more effectively do governance this way. So yeah, it's liquid democracy at its best when it works.
When it works. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that for the normal user out there that's not tech savvy and stuff like that, a DRep would be just the same as a stake pool operator. So you would delegate your vote to that person to do the right decisions. So it would be really important for the DReps to be open and public about their thinking and stuff like that. So you know what you vote for.
You should disclose preferably like why you vote, how you vote, and also how you plan to vote, so that someone who delegates to you doesn't get surprised with how you're voting. So yeah, that's part of this code of conduct, and you really nailed the essence of it, because in the background, really, it's really the same type of like staking case technology. So you can really compare it with a staking pool. And one of the things we've been thinking about there is like, will we see the same form of stickiness? You know, in staking pools, often delegators stick to a pool. It's quite hard to have a change. You see that now with the mint fee when we reduced it. Not that many actually moved pools. And we're wondering, will the same happen with DReps or not? And we really want to have like an active and lively governance. So we're trying to encourage that through that code of conduct with how you disclose what you're going to vote and things like that.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of active users to change their delegation to a representative and all that. And you're right, there is a lot of state pool stickiness. Once they delegate, they don't come back until next bull market. So, you
Yeah.
may not see changes in wallets for a year or so. And I've seen that as well. Like a lot of delegates have just been delegating for over a year, 2 years on my stake pool. So nothing changes. So it's incredible.
Yeah.
You also mentioned a little bit earlier rewards for delegating to a DRep. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
So basically, what was discussed in Ghana, one of the workshop, is they actually plan and they want for those who delegate to a DRep to have rewards from whatever incentives the DRep gets himself. And that makes like economic sense, but it's also something like you have to consider from a ethical standpoint. There's currently no like saturation limits on DRep. Could we have like super popular DReps that basically promises to give most of what they earn back to their delegators? And is that good for Cardano governance? Or do we want like people who use the resources they get to actually have like a organization that really researches and does proper due diligence on what they're voting on? And I think I'm leaning toward the latter myself. But it's very important we explore all of this now, so we are prepared for that. So because the incentives are still being discussed, we are discussing should we withdraw from the treasury and incentivize the reps. This is not final yet, so just to stress that part.
Yeah. It's all in the works at the moment. But yeah, buying votes. I don't know about that. So
Exactly.
you don't see that anywhere else. Now you also said now being a DRep and doing all this research will take a huge amount of time and effort. I know just working through Project Catalyst at the moment, doing interviews with various projects, going through and trying to advise my community on what projects are really good and what they should vote for. There's got to be some sort of compensation for that, because it can turn into a full-time job if you want to do this properly.
I fully agree, and I think that's what's going to give us the best quality of the governance, that we make this incentivization. So the big question is going to be like, how do we do this in a fair way and a way that rewards those who put in the effort? Like, because it's hard to, for example, take hours. Like someone who's an expert on the topic might use way less hours than someone who's new on a topic, but the quality could be better on that expert. So I am thinking maybe in the future we should have something like in Catalyst where we have like a review system as well on top of all of this, because I think you can't remove the human layer of governance. It's always going to be there. But for now, like what we're discussing the most is like this budget process and making sure there are a budget and allocation for the different DReps. And I know there's some very interesting research being done on this by IOG as well. So I think all I can say there is like stay tuned, and we will see what brings. But there are a lot of thinking now about these incentives, and from our end, from workshop, we are contributing with trying to look at how can you potentially abuse the system, and how can we try to encourage good behavior, because that's what I believe in, like not to punish bad behavior, but instead try to encourage good behavior. Take, for example, arbitrary voting. You just randomly vote. That's actually quite hard to know if a person does or not. So it's hard to punish that, but it's way easier to actually reward someone for writing really good voter rationales, for example, and having that reviewed. So I think that's the way forward, basically.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
see that happening for me. If there's a deadline for voting, I would just go, oh, vote, 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 click, click, click.
I've done that myself so
I
many
haven't done my
times.
homework. I'll just click on anything. That would do. I'll write the rationale afterwards.
I've done that myself. Yeah.
Oh boy,
Mm.
okay. So lots of interesting stuff here, and like you said, watch this space for where and how DReps evolve this year. How can people get involved? Can people still organize workshops with you guys? I'd love to run one here in Australia later this month, if possible, as well.
Yeah, so actually we've been thinking about that because we saw some interest. We have interest from Latam community, we have interest from Korea, Oscar, the ambassador there, and now you as well, Australia. And we thought to ourselves, like, what can we do to help with this? And we are going to like make like an open source package of all the material we have done so far and all our learnings from our workshop, and with some suggested topics that could be interesting, but not with like guidelines you have to ask these questions, more like an open, this is what we saw, you can use it if you want, and give like a package like that. And then we also are discussing with others to do funding and help support this. It's hard for us to do it only on our budget, because if we get a lot of requests, then suddenly we have to prioritize, and then we have a problem budget wise. But we are in contact with some of the entities on this, and we hope to Thomas, if you are familiar with him, he's an ambassador in Cardano as well. He's been doing a lot of work behind the scenes on that. So I can promise definitely we'll have an open package, but what we also hope to have is some form of funding. So anyone who are really interested in this can actually also then have some funding to do these workshops as well. So yeah,
All
we
right.
love that idea, and that's what it's all about, like the community doing this together. That I can't, that's the best ever, like if that happens. So I'm fully on board with that.
I would also say for those that are attending those workshops, um, you don't have to be like very technical. As long as you have a general understanding of how Cardano works, and you're really loving this ecosystem, you should definitely go there, because in most of workshops like that, there are very technical people that are very focused on the code, what the stuff should look like, and so on. So there is actually a need for non-technical people that see it just from a user interface, how it should work, how they want to push the buttons and stuff like that. So it has to be a inclusive invitation for all people, I think.
Well, I have to say, it's the end users that break everything
Yeah,
that the technical guys build. So we definitely need them all there. And I love how you, in your workshop there in Norway, looked into the economy of DReps and how people can possibly game the system and buy
Yeah.
votes and all that stuff. So it's pretty interesting to learn all that. Is there an online community that people can join?
It's an excellent comment. We so far, if you go on Cardano forum and see one of the recaps from the workshop, we have a link to a working document. Anyone can comment on it and give feedback, and we constantly update it and give back answers to any feedback we have. We are probably planning, after we have done these workshops, to set up some form of community, and Michael Madoff from IOG actually presented in Norway and said that there will be like a DRep pioneer program. So that's likely going to be a next step, and we will definitely build a community around that, and we'll try to coordinate with entities on how that will look like. But that's a very good remark. That's something we definitely need to do even further.
And Eystein, we also need to shill Nordic ADA. So if you are in the Nordics, you should definitely search Nordic ADA up on Twitter and get invited to our Discord channel so we can grow as a community.
And we have a governance section there to discuss this workshop. So if you are in the Nordic, you can go there. And I'm sure Jose have something similar for the Latam community. And Adam Rush, you can contact for the American community. And Yuta is in the Japanese community as well. And we have Eco, who's doing the Ghana community. And I'm so I want to end with that. I'm so impressed with the Ghana community, what they did in their workshop. There was one guy, he walked 12 hours to be there for the workshop. And
Wow.
They're really dedicated. And I saw some picture, they really know their merch. They had a sixpence with a Cardano logo on top of it. You can see they're real Cardano fans. So it's really nice to see.
All right, I'll check that out. I'll grab links and stuff from you and put them all in the show notes so other people can see them as well. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on this and taking me through the DRep journey so far. I've been out of the loop, but I think I'm caught up now, and I'm really excited about the DRep future, and I think I might just go register as a DRep right now.
Excellent. SocialNet and GovTools, and go ahead. That's awesome.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast.